August 1944. The Allied breakthrough at Normandy has torn open German defenses across France. General George Patton's Third Army is pushing eastward at speeds that military planners never imagined possible, sometimes advancing 30, 40, even 50 miles in a single day. But the faster the armies move, the more serious a problem becomes. They are outrunning their own lifeline. Every Sherman tank consumes 5 gallons of fuel per mile. Every infantry division requires more than 600 tons of supplies every single day. Food, ammunition, fuel, medical stock, replacement parts, clothing, tools, everything. The port of Cherbourg, still damaged from German demolition, can barely handle even a fraction of what is needed. Antwerp, the next major port, will not be usable for months. That means every crate, every shell, every drop of fuel must be hauled overland from the Normandy beaches, more than 300 miles away. And those roads, already narrow in peacetime, are now cratered, bombed, mined, and choked with debris from the German retreat. Inside Supreme Headquarters, logistics officers stare at charts that make no sense. Patton's forces are flying forward, but the supply trucks simply cannot keep up. Sherman tanks are grinding to a halt, not because of enemy fire, but because they have no fuel. Drivers are arriving at the front with empty tanks, and some battalions are forced to immobilize vehicles entirely. Ross explains that 23% of supplies are being lost before they even reach the front. Accidents, breakdowns, German aircraft, mechanical failures, confusion, overloaded roads. Eisenhower listens grimly. If Patton slows down, the Germans will be able to regroup. If Patton keeps moving without supplies, his entire army could collapse. The window to end the war before winter is narrowing. Eisenhower demands solutions in days, not months. 90 miles away, Technical Sergeant Raymond Ray Kowalski sits in the cab of his GMC truck, staring at the charred remains of another convoy. A German strafing run hit them on a narrow rural road. They had nowhere to maneuver. They were simply targets on display. Kowalski is 34 years old. Before the war, he was a long-haul truck driver in Pittsburgh, hauling steel shipments through brutal mountain weather. No military academy, no engineering background, just 15 years of driving in conditions that would break less experienced men. The Army gave him 2 weeks of driver training and sent him to Europe. Now he watches good men die because someone far above him created rules that do not match reality. He lights a cigarette and remembers something his old dispatcher used to say: "Convoys are for show. Profit is in the spacing." At this point, if you are enjoying the depth of this historical story, feel free to share what part of military history you find the most fascinating. Viewer responses help shape future documentaries. The official doctrine for the Red Ball Express, the emergency trucking operation designed to supply the advancing Allied armies, is based on strict convoy rules: 20 or more trucks at a time, 60 yards of spacing, a fixed maximum speed of 25 miles per hour. Always together, always in formation, safety through numbers. During the past 2 weeks, Kowalski has driven in 6 of these convoys. Every single one has taken casualties. The Germans spot the huge formations with ease. When enemy aircraft appear, the entire convoy stops. vehicles jam together. Nobody can escape. The spacing that is supposed to protect the drivers makes them into a perfect stationary target. But one day, Kowalski notices something different. His convoy is delayed for 6 hours at a depot. Drivers are frustrated. Some trucks are loaded early and decide to depart on their own without waiting for the convoy. No formation, no schedule, no doctrine. They simply leave. When Kowalski reaches the forward depot hours later, he discovers that every single one of those independent trucks arrived safely. Meanwhile, his official convoy loses 3 more vehicles to German fighters. He starts tracking the pattern. Convoys are slaughtered. Independent trucks, traveling alone or in pairs, spaced over hours, are virtually untouched. They blend into the landscape. By the time German pilots spot one, the effort to attack a single truck is not worth the fuel or ammunition. But 20 trucks together, that is a target worth hunting. Kowalski does the math. Convoys suffer losses, approaching a quarter of all vehicles. Independent trucks lose less than 3%. He takes his notebook to his commander, Captain Dennis Hayes. Hayes dismisses him immediately. "You are a truck driver, not a strategist." The official rejection comes quickly. Battalion headquarters writes that convoy doctrine is based on established military wisdom. Individual truck operations create communication gaps. It violates tactical protocol. Proposal denied. Kowalski laughs bitterly. He has driven trucks longer than these officers have been in uniform, yet they dismiss him as if his experience is worthless. Still, he refuses to give up. He tries again, this time with Lieutenant Colonel Martin Burgess of the Transportation Corps. Burgess listens, but ultimately rejects the idea as too dangerous. One broken-down truck alone on the road is unacceptable. Convoys ensure support, he argues, but convoys are losing enormous amounts of supplies. The army seems more afraid of breaking doctrine than fixing the problem. When Kowalski tries sharing his observations with other drivers, they shout him down. They think he is proposing suicide. They fear being picked off alone on empty French roads. Even his own squad avoids him. But not everyone mocks him. A few drivers approach him privately. They have seen the same pattern. They have noticed the same survivability among independently dispatched trucks. They believe he is correct, but they also know the army will never approve a change that challenges long-standing tradition. Then, in late August, someone else reads Kowalski's proposal. Lieutenant General Walter Bedell Smith, Eisenhower's chief of staff, is wrestling with the worsening supply crisis. Patton has been ordered to halt, not by the Germans, but by empty fuel tanks. The British are rationing ammunition. The opportunity to crush the German retreat is slipping away. Smith reads every document that crosses his desk, including after-action reports from truck companies. He sees Kowalski's proposal, buried among paperwork that most officers ignored. He storms into Colonel Ross's office, demanding an explanation for why it was rejected. When Ross begins citing doctrine, Smith cuts him off. The Germans are not halting Allied progress. Doctrine is he orders Kowalski brought to headquarters immediately. 2 hours later, the sergeant stands in front of several colonels and a lieutenant general. His uniform is dusty, his sleeves stained with oil, and he has not shaved in days. He believes he may be facing disciplinary action. Smith asks him to explain the entire concept as if he were speaking to someone who knows nothing about trucking. Kowalski explains everything. Predictability is the enemy. The Germans know convoy schedules, speeds, and routes. Fighters simply wait along the expected paths. But if trucks are dispatched individually as soon as they are loaded, with no waiting and no massing, they become impossible to predict. Instead of 20 trucks in a single stretch of road, there are 20 trucks spread across dozens of miles and several hours. Harder to find, harder to track, harder to hit. Breakdowns. Escorts can patrol the routes, and a single truck isolated is far less costly than 20 destroyed at once. Silence fills the tent. Smith studies the numbers. 23% losses versus 3%. He orders an immediate test. Kowalski will oversee 20 trucks for 1 week. If losses remain under 10%, the army will adopt the system. Against fierce objections from traditionalists, the test is approved. September 1st, 1944. The test begins at dawn at the Allenson Supply Depot. Normally, trucks would wait hours for every vehicle to be loaded before departing together. Not today. At 600 hours, the first truck is loaded. Kowalski sends it out immediately. No convoy, no formation, no schedule. The driver is nervous, but he obeys. At 6:18, the second truck leaves. At 6:33, the third rolls out. One by one, trucks depart over a period of 5 hours. They spread across 90 miles of road, each moving at speeds appropriate for conditions rather than a slow, forced convoy speed. Transportation Corps observers are horrified. They record every violation, speed irregularities, no convoy spacing, individual trucks in a combat zone, procedures shattered. But the system works. Trucks begin arriving at forward dumps faster than any previous convoy. The first completes its delivery an hour and a half ahead of average convoy times. All 20 trucks arrive safely. 0 losses. 1 flat tire that the driver fixes alone. Over the next few days, results continue to exceed expectations. Day after day, deliveries rise, losses fall, and German aircraft have no meaningful targets. A single truck is not worth a pilot's fuel. In one case, a German fighter makes a single strafing pass at one of Kowalski's trucks, misses, and returns to base. It is not worth the risk. By the 5th day, even skeptical officers begin to understand. The data is undeniable. The new method cuts losses from nearly a quarter to less than 3%. On September 7th, General Smith orders immediate adoption of Kowalski's staggered dispatch method across the entire Red Ball Express. The effect is immediate and dramatic. Within weeks, nearly 6,000 trucks are flowing continuously in a steady stream of staggered departures. No more massing, no more predictable targets, no more enormous convoys waiting for hours. Trucks now leave every 3 to 5 minutes, 24 hours a day. Losses drop to 2.7%. Delivery speed increases by almost 1/3. Supplies reaching the front almost double. Patton's army receives enough fuel to advance all the way to the German border. German pilots report growing frustration. One squadron commander writes that Allied trucks now operate with no predictable pattern. Hunting them is a waste of Germany's limited fuel. They simply stop trying. This logistical breakthrough does more than speed Patton's advance. It reshapes the Allied campaign. The Red Ball Express delivers more than 400,000 tons of supplies in 82 days. Historians will later debate whether combat strength or logistics won the war in Europe. But without the supplies delivered through this method, combat strength would have meant nothing. The success spreads to other theaters. The British 8th Army in Italy adopts the same approach. Pacific operations begin studying it. After the war, the United States Army officially incorporates the method into its doctrine. It becomes required learning for logistics officers, and it continues shaping military operations for decades. Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, Iraq, Afghanistan. The same underlying concept endures. Dispersion is resilience. Civilian logistics soon follows. Companies realize that staggered dispatch is not only safer, but more efficient. Modern giants like Amazon, UPS, and FedEx use continuous rolling dispatch. They may not know that it began with a single sergeant, but the influence is there. In 1946, Kowalski returns to Pittsburgh. He goes back to driving trucks. No book tours, no public fame, just a bronze star in a drawer and a quiet life. The Army, however, remembers. His notebook, filled with scribbles of math and observations made during the chaos of war, is displayed at the Transportation Museum at Fort Lee. The museum placard states a simple truth: innovations often come not from generals, but from the people who do the work every day. Kowalski passed away in 1983. His obituary mentioned his Bronze Star, but not the world-changing method that earned it. A simple man, a working man, who altered the course of Allied logistics through common sense and experience. Today, throughout every military supply network and every major delivery company, his insight still resonates. If you make yourself predictable, you make yourself vulnerable. Disperse, adapt, and move continuously, and you become nearly impossible to stop. His method cut supply losses by 90%. It sustained the Allied advance. It influenced global logistics for generations. And it all started because one truck driver refused to accept that tradition was always correct. If you found this story compelling, feel free to share your thoughts. Which part of this forgotten chapter of history surprised you the most? And do not forget to subscribe and like the video if you want more untold stories that shaped the world.